Welcome to the Aerotropolis Atlanta Podcast. I am Shannon James, your president and CEO, and I am extremely excited to have a great guest amongst us. I tell you, she is one of the hardest working women in Metro Atlanta, and I feel extremely blessed to have her presence here in our podcast because we've done exactly what it takes to get her here. None other than Jodie Gray. Hey, Jodie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Jodie is with the South Fulton CID, and for those of you who may not be as familiar, you're going to get a great education today, I promise you, because we have a subject matter expert, the leader of the South Fulton CID in our presence, and Jodie is phenomenal. So, Jodie, kind of tell us about yourself, your role with the South Fulton CID, and your background. Kind of help us understand who you are.
Yeah, great. So our South Fulton CID was formed in 1999. So we're one of the oldest CIDs in the Atlanta region.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've been around for a long time, but we've flown under the radar a little bit because we're very small in terms of the amount of revenue that we generate each year. It's growing every year with development. Things are changing very quickly, but we have been in operation for quite some time. They hired me as a contractor because there just wasn't enough money to have a full-time economic, director and or executive director. So I'm their administrator. I am in charge of all the project management, all the administration, basically anything that the CID needs done, I do. And we also have a government relations contractor and legal and accounting. So that kind of makes up for the things that I can't do, but otherwise do everything else.
Nice.
And
woman of many talents.
Yeah. So it's a great area, and the people that have been involved in it have been involved for years and years, and we've seen a lot of change happen, as you can imagine.
Oh, no question.
I started with the CID just a couple years after it got formed. So believe it or not, I've been around since about 2001 working on the CID area. So in our CID, it's a pretty large geography. We're in 4 jurisdictions.
Oh, nice.
So we're
a lot of fun.
Yeah. So we're mostly in the city of Fairburn, but we're also in parts of Union City, city of South Fulton, and city of Palmetto.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine that creates a lot of challenges, but also I think shows why a CID is so necessary. We can be the umbrella over these jurisdictions and bring people together when we need to bring people together. I just had a recent landowner contact me because his property is in one jurisdiction, but the access that he needs is in another jurisdiction. So we were able to facilitate meetings between those 2 jurisdictions to try to see what we can make happen. So I think that's a good example of why the CID is important in this area. But we generally go from about 138 and I-85 all the way down to the Coweta County border.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's a pretty large area, and I-85 and Oakley Industrial Boulevard is our main corridor.
Oh, that's a big corridor. I mean, you just mentioned several things. When you said 1999, it made me think about Prince. Seriously. But I don't know why I'm a Prince fan. But, you mentioned Fairburn, Mayor Elizabeth Hurst. She is phenomenal. You mentioned Union City, Mayor Vince Williams. You mentioned Palmetto, Mayor Bodie.
Yes.
And then there was one other city you mentioned.
City of South Fulton.
City of South Fulton. We're talking Mayor Edwards and his team, the newly formed City of South Fulton. So you're talking about multi-jurisdictional partnership. Oh, my God.
Definitely.
And all of those cities you mentioned, with the exclusion of one, they are all members of the Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance. So great leaders. Mayor Hurst, Williams, Bodie, Edwards, they're all great leaders. And so I think with the CID, it brings that added component, right? That public-private partnership that we've been touting so much in our area. And it sounds like, you guys have been doing an amazing job at facilitating, right? Because now you are just an added component to help things flow from a transportation perspective. And you mentioned access. So that's extremely critical. And I don't think our listeners and viewers truly understand the impact. And so today, I think they're going to really feel it. You mentioned that some of the boundaries and some of the opportunities that you guys are involved in. Kind of help me understand some of the objectives of the South Fulton CID. So help us all understand kind of what are the focal points for the CID.
So I would say our focus is transportation and access. But through transportation, that's how we leverage our economic development opportunities and even more roadway safety.
Oh, it's everything.
So transportation, almost everything we do has something to do with transportation and access.
That's right.
Our goal is to get our trucks to the interstate, our commuters to get to their jobs, and to really facilitate the safe mix between our truck traffic and our automobile traffic. And, the area has been around for a very long time.
That's right.
It was very rural for a very long time, and development started happening rather quickly. So you have a lot of rural roadways with heavy truck traffic now, and that's created some challenges in the area, and that's what we're here to try to solve.
Well, trust me, I know our listeners and viewers are extremely excited to hear that, especially the cities you named, because I'm sure they're like, Jodie Gray, what's her contact info? Well, I tell you, I think transportation has been very much so a topic for the state, let alone the area of the CID. And knowing that, the concentration of the South Fulton CID is heavily around the area means a ton because you're talking about this is more of a logistics hub. I mean, let's just be honest.
Exactly.
And so when you have a logistics hub, you need to have mechanisms in place to help control and monitor and make sure there's a safe balance. So I want to commend you and your board for doing one great job of facilitating and orchestrating, to be quite honest with you. So kind of help us understand some of the projects or past or even present that you guys have worked on so our listeners and viewers can understand some of the work that the South Fulton CID is doing.
Well, we've obviously done some significant projects. We've also done a lot of really small, just incremental changes over time. But I think the project I'm the most proud of, because it was multi-jurisdictional and I think it had a major impact on the area, was the redevelopment of the Oakley Industrial Boulevard corridor.
Yeah.
And
That's a big one.
that was, as I mentioned, a pretty rural, substandard roadway with heavy truck traffic. But it didn't just have heavy truck traffic. It also had school buses, and it had children out waiting for the school buses and automobile traffic. Wow. So we really wanted to do a major upgrade to that roadway, and we were able to accomplish it through multi-jurisdictional cooperation, because there was 3 jurisdictions involved, and also finding a variety of funding sources. We had federal funding, state funding, local funding. So just really us being in the play of finding that funding mix and making, encouraging those jurisdictions to work together was really, important in making that project happen.
Absolutely.
And so today that roadway has wider travel lanes, it has shoulders, it has sidewalks, it has a center turn lane. And another thing that was happening, because I want to make sure our workers can get to work.
That's right.
And not everybody has a car. So I wanted to see if we could get MARTA to run down that roadway. Well, they came back and said, that roadway is too substandard for us to run our buses on. And so now that it's fixed, I came right back to MARTA and said, we're done.
That's right.
Can we get MARTA buses running down Oakley Industrial Boulevard?
That's right.
And so that's one of my goals right now.
That's big stuff. I mean, getting MARTA to listen to you is one thing, right? But now to pay attention and to now do or make the implications to now get their attention to move to the next step, I think is powerful. And so that's good work. Seriously, amazing stuff. Any projects on the horizon that you guys are thinking about or got in the mix in the hopper? Because I've been to your meetings and you guys got a lot of things cooking.
We have so much going on right now. It's actually incredible. But we have 2 projects that we're about to construct that I'd love to talk about today, because I think they're both just really interesting projects. And the first is a new roadway that we're developing and that we actually recently were awarded Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank funding for, GTIB funding, which is through CERTA. So we're very proud of it to be able to get that funding. Now, why did the state think this was an important roadway? It's because it's connecting the CSX intermodal facility to State Route 74 and ultimately the interstate. We do have access, but it's at-grade railroad access.
Oh, wow.
And oftentimes the trains block that corridor for up to 30 minutes at a time.
30 minutes?
So it's just not always sustainable for our truck traffic and
Right.
our commuters trying to get to work. So this is going to be a new roadway that's really going to open up the area to not just for CSX, but a lot of our warehousing, a lot of our employment, and get them to the interstate more efficiently. So I'm really excited about that project. And another one that we're doing is a park and ride lot on State Route 74.
Okay.
And this just isn't to benefit our area. It's to benefit Fayette County as well, because we have so many commuters coming up from Peachtree City and town of Tyrone, accessing the State Route 74 interchange at I-85, and all those commuters are just sitting in traffic, waiting to get on the interchange. You know, it's
Right.
probably the one time that the interchange is less congested than our state route. And so with this park and ride lot, we'll be taking over 200 cars off the road before they ever even
Wow.
get to the interchange.
Wow.
Again, can't wait to talk to Marta about that project and see if we can get their buses out there. But we're doing what we can. And we want to show the community that we're not just about, just all trucks all the time, all freight access,
Right.
although that is incredibly important to us. We also are concerned about the commuters. We're concerned about the congestion, and we want to make this area as efficient as possible. And so speaking of the interchange, that is definitely our most important project. We have been working on that project for as long as I can remember.
Wow.
And we had funding secured through state and federal funds. We're very excited about it. We're about to start right-of-way acquisition. And GDOT informed us that right-of-way costs came back about double what we were anticipating.
Double.
And that there's no funding for it.
Oh.
And that do the local jurisdictions have the funding? And as you can imagine, we don't.
Right.
So this is the beautiful thing about the CID and all these jurisdictions working together, because it's not just the city of Fairburn, it's not just the state, it's not just the CID, it's Fayette County, Peachtree City, everybody really coming to the table to see what we can accomplish as a group, as a community. And I think that's what really makes the CID powerful, and this area is so powerful. So we're on it, and I probably
Yes,
have
you are.
conversations about it almost every day, because that is our focus right now.
It should be. Which interchange, just to make sure our listeners
It's State
understand.
Route 74 at I-85. And
That's a major one.
It's a major one. And we talked a bit already about landscaping and the importance of beautification in these areas. And that is a component of this interchange. I mean, first of all, we just need to get the interchange functional.
right.
You know,
You on and off, please.
but
Yeah.
it's also the gateway to all of our communities. And
is.
just like all these beautiful interchanges that you see being developed around the state of Georgia, we want that too.
That's
we want
right.
that for our community too. And we want multimodal access. We want an interchange that's going to work for our commuters, for our trucks, for people walking, people biking. And so that's a focus of just keeping our eye on the prize of not just let's make that interchange functional, but let's also make it the gateway to our community.
Jodie, you mentioned CSX, and I know that CSX is a very big powerhouse right there in your corridor. I mean, we're talking trucks, we're talking access. I know they're doing a lot of building out there. Matter of fact, they sit on your board, so they're very engaged. And so kind of talk to our listeners about the economic impact or just the strength of what CSX is, the influence that they've brought to the market, and how you guys are working together to figure out these solutions, because they basically run from here to California. And so when you've got a juggernaut like CSX in your backyard, and knowing that you guys are playing well together in the sandbox, is always good for our listeners to understand what that partnership looks like. Can you speak to us more about, that relationship between South Fulton CID and CSX?
Absolutely. So really, when CSX decided to locate their intermodal facility in the city of Fairburn, that put Fairburn on the map, and it also was the catalyst for getting the CID started.
Oh, wow.
So folks saw that there was going to be a need, that development was going to occur in the area because of the CSX
Right.
location. And so let's try to get ahead of some of the transportation infrastructure that was needed. CSX has been on our board since day one. They have been amazing to work with. They definitely listen, and they try to troubleshoot with us. And they've made some major technological changes to get trucks in their gates faster, and just to try to make their operations more efficient. And they are doing a major expansion right now. And there's cranes out there. You see a lot of activity going on.
Yeah.
And I think, it's really been the catalyst for a lot of our warehousing that's gone up in the area. And, you're seeing just an increase in the economic activity in this area. And I think a lot of it is due to CSX being located here.
Yeah, they're great people. I tell you, we've had tours of CSX. They even allow, with proper planning to come see the facility. So they're very open and engaged to the community. So, Matt and everyone at CSX, we love you guys. You guys have been great. And so, it's always good to hear from a community advocate how important that private partnership is for growth and development. And you guys are a clear illustration of how, knowing a demand or strength in regards to a company like CSX entering the market and proactively engaging them to now make sure that they have the right community partner to build and grow and advance, which I think has illustrated the greatest partnership because they're growing. They're expanding. They're doing more. So more jobs, more opportunities, more investment, more corporate investment into the city of Fairburn and all those that are around CSX. So great job, Jodie and your team. You guys have been phenomenal. I have attended the meetings. The Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance are advocates of South Fulton CID. We're partners together. And so that is what we're hoping our listeners and our viewers understand, is that we're working together as a team down here. This is an ecosystem that we're creating together. And so as other opportunities come and corporate investment is eyeballing our area, then they know that they have partners here, right? And so what better way than to illustrate that through the efforts of the South Fulton CID, which I tell everyone is like compounding interest. You've got the Aerotropolis Alliance, you've got the South Fulton CID in partnership together. You've got one great formula. You've got a Megatron, if you will. And so I just want to thank you, Jodie, for taking time out. Is there anything else that you would like for our listeners and viewers to know before we exit the podcast? Anything that you want to convey?
I guess I would just like people to understand the benefits of these logistics centers, manufacturing, warehousing, industrial has to a community and to the economic, these are jobs that we're talking about.
That's right.
And not only are they jobs, but they're all things that we need in our everyday life. We need things that are manufactured. We need them to be boxed. We need them to be delivered. U.S. Foods is in our area. They are the major provider for hospitals and schools in the area.
That's right.
And so the access is very important, and this is I think an important area that's serving a great function for our emerging economy.
Wow. So well articulated, Jodie. As you can tell, she's a rock star, guys. I mean, Jodie is phenomenal. If you guys haven't been in contact with Jodie Gray, you're missing out on a treat. I'm telling you. And she's already illustrated when they meet. I plan to be there for sure. And Jodie, I just want to thank you for joining us today on the Aerotropolis Atlanta Podcast. You have always been phenomenal, and today you didn't disappoint whatsoever. And so thank all of our listeners for joining us today. Aerotropolis Atlanta Alliance, land here, take off. All things economic development, empowerment, competitiveness. See us next time. Thank you.